All right, everybody. It is a summer edition of Green with Envy. Now that it is past July 4th, it is officially the dog days of the offseason as we wait for the Olympics. I've got my man Khari Thompson joining me. It's Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? As you may notice, I do not have my usual co-host here with me. So real quick before I bring my guy Khari Thompson in here, want to give a quick shout out and update on my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, one and only Greg Manakis. James Moy Manakis, baby boy, has officially arrived July 4th, 12:09 a.m. A very healthy 8 pounds, 10 ounces, 22 inches. Greg and his beautiful fiance, Danielle, are super happy. They welcomed baby James into the world. They are getting all their bearings together. They're heading home from the hospital, I believe, today as we're recording this. So want to give a big shout out to them. The baby's beautiful. Baby's in good health. And that's all that we could ask for. And man, he's going to be spoiled with a July 4th birthday. Kid is going to think that he is king of the world. And I cannot wait to spoil him. But for right now, let me welcome in my man who's jumping in here to help us out today and talk about some Celtics off-season basketball. It is Khari Thompson of Boston.com. Khari, what's good, man? How you doing?
What's up, Will? First of all, congrats to Greg, right? Clap it up. Let's go.
That's right, man.
Good job.
That's our guy right
Welcome
there.
to the world, James. And yeah, heck of a birthday, man. July 4th. It doesn't get
real quick, Khari, you're a big dude. You hear those combine stats that we're working with already?
No.
8 pounds, 10 ounces, 22 inches. I mean, that Greg's primed to set up with he got the baller statistics to start off here, week 1 of our guy's life.
Well, Greg's already gonna have him doing drills like by the time he's like 5, man. Like,
oh, he's gonna be in the crib doing drills. You know what I mean? I think we might even add like a little hoop in there, just to start getting the memory going there. So it will be interesting to see, with Greg and the baby and everything. We'll make sure that we keep you updated. And Greg will be back on this podcast probably sometime when we get back towards the Olympics, end of the month, early August or so. We'll see. We'll kind of play that by ear, but I know Greg will give us his full details. But Khari, happy belated July 4th here, man. What'd you do for the holiday?
I appreciate it. I laid low, man. I needed some time after hitting the road in the off season. I just took a week off and I was like, yo, I'm not doing anything. I'm just staying here in Dorchester, rocking it, getting some rest.
Hey, sometimes that's the perfect thing to do. I was recently in Boston. I flew back. So I was scheduled to fly into Boston the Saturday after the parade. And then I kind of said to myself, I was like, man, you really going to fly in the day after the parade? I gotta go at least like check this out. So I rerouted my flight and I extended my stay in Boston for a few days. Did make it in time for the parade to check that out. Were you covering the parade? Did you attend the parade? Did you just want to separate yourself from everything after all the playoffs, all the flights, all the traveling, all the coverage? Did you imbibe in the city was popping that day? I think it was 1.5 million were in the city for that parade.
I was definitely there. I was at TD Garden though. I mean, I won't say that.
That's why I posted up. I wasn't, obviously in the reporters area, but I couldn't get. I'm too old to get into the mix, which I very quickly realized once I saw how crowded it was. But that was the area that I stood in the shade because I'm old and washed, and that's what I was more concerned about, was making sure that I had shade from the sun that day just to watch it. But what was it from your perspective at the TD Garden?
Yeah, so I was down there at the on the floor for that, that pregame availability that they did. You know how Scal was asking them questions beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, not a lot of great stuff to work with from that. I mean, you had the little dig Tatum through at Miami, but like so mild, so Tatum, and so. Watched that. That was pretty cool. Watched everybody like walk right by me on the way to get to the duck boats, and I saw, some of the subs were there. I saw Paul Pierce that was there. I saw a bunch of dudes walking around with the Larry O'Brien trophy. And then they had a viewing area at the Garden, right, that opening right above North Station, like above banners. They kind of opened that up for some media and some VIPs to kind of, get the opening shots of the parade from there. So took a couple videos, walked over to the office to write because I wasn't trying to be standing out there in that heat for the whole time. And other people like Gary Washburn had the assignment of actually being on the duck boat and giving, that type of color commentary. So with me having a smaller role in that, I was like, let me hit the office and just write, a little bit about what I saw.
Yeah, man. I mean, that like I said, I was basically right where you described, just across the street was exactly where I was standing, whereas the parade got going. And it was a beautiful day. The vibes were great. It felt like there, at least to my knowledge, there wasn't any incidents or anything like that. Like you said, and I get it. We've done this before, and like this isn't new to the city. So the city's prepared for these type of events. And I know they did the, scal interviews, which were very, like you said, it was very mild. There really wasn't much to take away. And, part of that's because, when you do get some of these great sound bites from other parades, and this is what originally when the Patriots won, it would always end right at City Hall. And you'd get the Troy Brown, I got bingo. That's bingo. We win again. You get like those type of sound bites. And I kind of wish this team got that right because when you get it at the end of the parade, they're so hyped up. And I mean, you saw, some of the clips of Missoula with a torn MCL or AC, I forget what the injury that he just
meniscus. He had the meniscus.
The torn meniscus. He's running along the sidelines. You got Jason Tatum throwing a football into the crowd. You got, I think Sam Hauser had a puke and rally at one point on the duck boats. So, I mean, like you kind of wish at that point you had Scal with a mic in these guys' faces because you could have really got some true color commentary on it. But, I get why they don't, but I think that would have been cool to hear what those guys had to say at the end of the parade after getting, after going through what's one of the coolest things that you can go through as an athlete.
Oh, totally, man. Like, get a couple beers in Jalen and have him with a state your sore shirt, see if he says anything,
right.
Or Derrick White after he tossed a couple beers, like,
exactly.
It really could have been a party. We missed out.
It could have been, but it was still great to be there and be back for it. Were you in the building for game 5? The night ended.
I was. I was in the building for every game and in the locker room after.
So give me this. So I talked to Michael Pina of The Ringer, and he gave us some pretty cool insights, I think a day or two afterwards, about what it was like being inside the locker room. You've been covering this team, day in, day out, especially throughout the playoffs. We had a chance to kind of connect briefly when we were in Dallas for game 4, which of course that was the one game the Celtics kind of shit the bed was the game that,
that you dropped a whole bunch of money on. Yes. Well,
I know. I don't even want to relitigate. I don't want to relitigate. It's not good for my mental. We won the finals. That's what's most important. But go back to game 5 and the night that the Celtics win the finals. You're in the locker room, champagne and beers are flowing. What are some of the memories that, now we're a couple of weeks removed from it? What are the couple of memories that you have that you think are really going to stick with you and you'll remember forever?
So I would say Sam Hauser walking through with a Celtics WWE style title belt. That was pretty cool.
Listen, Sam knows how to celebrate. I gotta say this. My man Sam was on boats. He was, puking and rallying like we talked about. Sam knew how to party. I'll say that much for him.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of shocking how many people were in there because I was like, like in your mind, right? When you picture a championship situation, you're like, oh, it's just going to be Tatum and Derrick White in there popping champagnes. No, it was like a whole bunch of random people in there with like some type of connection to powerful people that were like, that had enough sway to get them in to party with the Celtics. There are probably also some celebrities that I didn't recognize in there. But I would say the moment that probably stuck out the most to me, and I tweeted a video of this, was Derrick White pretended to yank out the tooth that he chipped. Like, picture Derrick White in the locker room talking to like a couple of reporters. It's like me and like Abby Chin, a couple other people. And like Derrick takes a swig from his champagne bottle and he kind of just like this. It has a yank down. And like
I think I saw Abby's reaction because I think Abby was like, obviously there's a lot going on. So like if there's ever a moment that you're going to use that sleight of hand where you can catch someone off guard, like there's so much going on around. And I think Abby was genuinely like, holy shit, did he just actually do that for a second before realizing that Derrick was kind of pranking her?
Because going into it, she was like, Derrick, I'm worried about your tooth. And Derrick's like, oh, yeah. Ah. And I thought it was hilarious. And so, like, the kicker of that video, like, so Derrick kind of looks over in my direction. I'm like, Derrick, how does it feel to be a champ? And Derrick completely doesn't hear me. And he goes, I love champagne. I love champagne. And he starts dancing, man. It was pretty cool, but it was that types of vibes, man. I mean, like everybody was turning up. I mean, people were wringing out shirts, full of alcohol over each other's heads.
Right.
Like there was cigar smoke, like like you wouldn't believe. Like obviously,
yeah, I mentioned that to Michael Pina when he came on. Is that like I love that when a championship gets won, all rules are just out the fucking book. Like they're out the window, right? Like it don't matter. You got Jalen walking down a hall smoking, smoking stogies, and he wasn't the only one, but there was like a video of him kind of lighting it up, and it's like, man, all these rules and regulations about smoke, where you can smoke, where you can drink, where you can do this or that, just win a championship, and it turns into the purge, and you can literally do anything without consequence. Which I mean, listen, I'm not here trying to say that we should, but I just love the juxtaposition of like how secure and tightly coordinated everything is at a place like the TD Garden, and then once you win a championship, to the victor go the spoils. It's anything goes at that point.
Yeah, that's why PR kept trying to kick us out, because like like it's just so many people in the locker room other than the players, and like they don't. It's not really a private moment, so they try to create some of like a private moment for these guys. But like you're right, but also like I don't know. I don't want to paint the picture of it all being like drinking and crazing and smoking. Like yes, that did happen, lots of it, but also there was just like some cool moments. Like I remember Jalen just walking down the hallway like late after everyone had gone, and he just had like a couple people with him. There were a couple people just staying around, and he was just dapping people up, just being a cool, like genuine dude. Like, like those are the moments that you don't really get to see, but like, like Jalen, he's a dude that connects with people for sure.
Right. No, and that's awesome, man. And that's so cool that you were able to just kind of survey everything, right? Be almost like a fly on the wall and get to see this moment that will be captured in time. And so I know that, that's going to be something that sticks with you here going forward. And that kind of brings us to, where we are at in the summer with this, with this Celtics team. And they're running it back. Right, they ain't playing around, and we'll get to what's looming over all of this, which Greg and I touched a little bit on the last episode. Is this pending sale, or at least the majority stake sale, by Whit Grousbeck and his dad Irv Grousbeck, which we can kind of loop into this here in a minute. But let's just focus on the Celtics being fully bought in on, at the very least, for next season, a full championship defense in which everybody's running it back. I mean, really, right now, the only name that we're unsure of coming back right now is O'Shea Brissett. That's really the only name that's unsure. And then, of course, Brad Stevens finally made a first-round pick. So now you have Baylor Shireman coming in here out of Creighton. We'll see what the kid out of Gonzaga, Anton Watson, brings. But, the laundry list of, we knew the JT extension was coming. That was kind of the one thing that we knew was an absolute no-brainer. The Derrick White extension, I think that's the biggest move of the offseason for the Celtics. And especially, I mean, my antenna went up as not necessarily in a panic, but I was worried when I saw Emmanuel Quickly got $35 million per year from the Raptors. And to me, that was just, all right, if you're Derrick White, and if it's all about money, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, this is a lifetime bag that, who knows, after these next 4 years, will he get another deal? The cap's going up, yada, yada. Who knows what that looks like? Like, this is going to be a moment where Derrick White is at the peak of, his not just popularity, but, he's the statistical darling around the league. Everyone wants a Derrick White for the championship run. And so he signs an extension for 4 years, 126, meaning he's here for 5 years. And I'll tell you this right now, Khari, there's going to have to be tough choices made in the next couple of years once we get past this. Derrick White's not going to be one of them. That's a steal of a contract for the player he is and for the landscape. So Derrick White's going nowhere in the next couple of years. I'll say that much. So him on that 4 years, 126 extension, to me, that's the move of the offseason for the Celtics, and one of the top 3 or 4 moves probably across the NBA in this offseason. Sam Hauser, he's back in. They can start negotiating an extension with him in the coming days. So we'll see where that looks at. But, take us where you will. What do you make of the Celtics being so invested in running this back next year, and not just running it back, but really securing up this core, at least contractually for now. Like I said, decisions will have to be made, but contractually for now, this team is in place for not just next year, but for the next couple of years.
I love it, right? This is what you want to see from an ownership group, right? You want to see commitment, you want to see assertiveness, you want to see willing to spend, and you want to see a group that knows that, like, we have a good group, not just in terms of how their skill sets fit each other, but we have a good group in that there's not really a lot of locker room drama and distractions. Like, we have a group that's almost boring to that point. Like, there's just not a lot going on. So, like, we have a group that's locked in, knows how to win together, knows how to win in various situations with KP, without KP. And I think you do whatever you can to keep it rolling. And like you said, Derrick White extension is huge. That dude didn't even test free agency. He was like, I've reached a point. I have a number. I like the number. I like the city. I like the situation I'm in. Let's do this. And I think it's also a good move for Derrick White's brand, because I don't know if you've been watching the Sam Adams commercials and some of the other commercials that Derrick White is doing, but he's like the local pitch guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they'll go to like Tatum for like national stuff. And, you know, JB, you know, he has his clothing line and stuff, but like, when it comes to like those local spots, Derrick White is kind of sliding into that role.
He's got like a hand warmer commercial too, or something like that. I think as well. I know he's got a couple of brands that Derrick White's cleaning up, man. Like I'm telling you, this is the time for Derrick White financially to capitalize.
Yeah, and so like, I guess the contracts that will be up the soonest, right? That would be probably Al, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and so Al expires at the end of next year. Yep. So he's got one more year on his deal,
and then Kristaps, because that extension was 2 years after.
Yep. So this upcoming season, and then the season after, and that's when you get to. So this next year, the Celtics are all good, right? Everybody's running it back. We're going to worry about Kristaps' health. It's basically, and all the same things that we talked about this last season, we're going to talk about this year, minus the fact that the team's already won a championship, so there's a weight off their shoulders. And I was talking to somebody back home, one of my friends back home, that was asking me about the Celtics a bit, and they made a great point that, you know, one of the biggest benefits going into next year is just that they can play so free. You know, there's not that every shot Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown takes, or every time Jaylen Brown's a turnover, there's not, this is why they're never going to win. Can't say that anymore, right? So you can play with this freedom that they've never had in their career, especially with like this level of their powers. Like when you're developing, you can play a little bit more free because there's less expectations, but you're not at the full capacity of your powers, which is where they're at, or at least getting close to. They may not even be at that yet. So I don't even want to put that limitation on what we've seen from the Jays. So that's a massive part of this, is that they're going to be able to play free. But as far as, you know, next year goes, it's going to be, you know, we got to keep Al in check, but they brought back Queta, they brought back Cornette, they brought back Tillman. So from a regular season perspective, I don't really have much worries. It's what does that front court look like when you get to the postseason? And then it's that following year, because Jason Tatum's max extension doesn't kick in until 25, 26. And that's when there's going to be some interesting decisions made. And I'm curious to get your take on this. And this, once again, is all going to tie into what happens with the sale of the Celtics. Does it stay kind of in the family, so to speak, with Steve Paggs being one of the main guys linked to potentially taking over from, you know, from Wick and his dad? Or is there, you know, outside investments? I've seen, and I know this is complete speculation, but I've seen people say, hey, Jeff Bezos just sold off like $5 billion worth of stock. I don't know. I know a particular team that's worth $5 billion. It's not going to cost him $5 billion, but he's going to need that capital. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in that. But without being too much of a Debbie Downer, Khari, when you look at that 25-26 season, that bill is insane. That bill coming is going to be, you know, close to a $500 million or so all in that you're kind of looking at. And so that's when I think, in my estimation, and let's see if you agree, that's probably where either Kristaps or Holiday, maybe both, that's where I would say those are probably the two guys that I would look at. That beyond next season, I would have a hard time sitting here and saying, guarantee you they're both here in the 25-26 season.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because Jrue is already 34. So you're projecting 2 years out. You're looking at a 36-year-old Jrue Holiday. And I don't know if he's going to be the same guy. Like, you know,
right.
so there's that to consider. And then Kristaps, you know, while I love what he brings, like skill set wise, because he is the type of weapon that the Celtics didn't have before. You just, given this short stint that we've had with him, you just can't trust that he's going to be healthy in crucial moments. So,
Right.
I mean, he was there for most of the regular season. What did he play? He
He was like
played in
7 games or so.
played in 57 games, so he missed 25 games, but he missed virtually all the playoffs. And, you know, again, small sample size, one season, unfortunate luck, but it's been a pattern throughout his career that, you know, it's more of a luxury, and that when you have him, he's really, really, the team is really, really good, taken to another level, but you can't count on it. So I would agree with you in terms of those two. I can't see him breaking up the Jays, no matter how much money they make, man. Back up
Yeah.
the Brinks truck. Like,
As soon as that championship was in hand, so to me, that's where I look at out of those 5 guys. And I mentioned Derrick White's contract's a steal. So I think he's secure because I don't think
sure.
you need a value contract. That's now one of the best value contracts in the NBA that you're going to see is Derrick White's 4-year 126 extension when that kicks in. And it is still crazy to recalibrate your mind that almost $30 million is now a value contract. I think I saw a graphic the other day where it was, maybe it was either 2011 or 2012. And I think Kobe Bryant was the highest paid player in the NBA at like $28 million a year.
Yeah.
That's Derrick White money now. That's discounted Derrick White money. That's not even Derrick White money. That's discounted Derrick White money. So it's
Porzingis
crazy
money too. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And this is where we've come in, 12 years or whatever it is. And so you have to like recalibrate what that means. So I think Derrick White, and then to your point, now that we have a championship, I can't, you're not moving the Jays. You're not, unless something goes horrific and one of them demands out. There's no chance that you're moving them. So to me, those 3 guys are the ones that beyond next season, I'm like, for at least the next 3 years, let's put a cap on 3 years, because I think you can only think in 2 to 3 year increments in the NBA. Anything beyond that, we have no idea what's going to happen. And so I think it's really hard to think beyond that. Those are the 3 guys that I look at, that those are your core that are going to be here. And then KP and Jrue, you're going to have to kind of figure out whether it's age with Jrue, injury history with KP. And then I think it depends, with that tax bill, depends who comes in, because the one thing that we know is we've already seen this offseason, even the guys. Now, Steve Ballmer, let's use this as an example because, I joked about the Bezos thing, but Bezos is the only guy that's playing in Ballmer's world. If somehow he were to come in here and try to get into this ownership group, and even he put the purse, he tightened it up this offseason for the first time, not necessarily because of the bill, but it's all the restrictions that go along with that second apron, not being able to aggregate contracts, getting picks moved to the back of the first round, not being able to sign minimum level guys, losing all your exceptions. There's so many restrictions that, that go along with it. It's going to make it really interesting to see what this team looks like. And, now that they're up for sale, who knows who's going to be making that call? What insights or what thoughts do you have about the Celtics potentially not even potentially, but being up for sale?
I think that it's an interesting situation. So did you read Dan Shaughnessy's column on this?
I have not. Tell me about it.
He raises some interesting points. Basically, he's chopping it up to this being Wick's dad's decision, and this being an estate planning call for their family. And he basically said that he came away convinced that Wick actually owns a smaller percentage of the team than people really think it is. So the price tag is going to be big, man. I mean, just think about the return on investment alone. When they bought that, 20 something years ago, the price is $360 million. Yeah. 360 million, right? Crazy. So they're gonna get a 10x return on this investment. It's insane. And there's very few people with that type of money.
That pool is shrinking, man, of people, because like you said, it's not going to be the full. I think the latest Forbes estimate is like 4.5 to 5 bill is, I think, kind of the estimated range. And so between Wick and his dad, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but you're still going to need 3 bill, 2-3 bill, something like that, to go ahead and buy this thing. Like, not a lot of people have that, man. Like there's a very, very small pool of people. And this is in general, man, one of my fascinations of the sporting world, not just the NBA, but you look at MLB and all these teams that are the contracts of individual players and the amounts that these teams are worth. They feel like they just keep incrementally growing. But in my mind, like at some point like I can't imagine, like there's got to be a cap to it at some point. But maybe not. I don't know. It's really, really baffling to me.
I mean, what's wild, again, this is just me being a consumer. But like sports is kind of like the only reason to watch TV now. Like,
like it really is a big part of it. It's the only reason I have YouTube TV.
Like,
is
what good shows are on?
Yeah, and they're all, and you gotta, and like everything's just and this is why all the streaming platforms are now trying to get into live sports in some capacity, right? And that's why you're seeing like Amazon is getting a piece of the NBA. They already got a piece of the NFL. You know, everybody's trying to get their hands on these different live entertainment rights because it's the only thing that can still draw you in really in the moment, right? Everything else, even like I know they did like the Tom Brady roast on Netflix was live, right? I watched that shit 3 days later. You know what I mean? Like I might have missed a few jokes on Twitter in the moment, but if I wasn't actively on my phone, what does it matter? I'll watch it. I'll watch it later. Sports is the only thing that really is still out there that like you can't really do that with. And even like nights when I miss a game, I'm still like locked into my phone, like checking updates on, on my phone as to like what's happening. And so even when I go back to watch a game, because, we're doing the podcast here, I already know what happened. Like I'm still looking for it so that I'm knowledgeable and I understand it. But like if I wasn't covering the team, I'm not going back to watch that game. Like very, very low chance I'm going unless something crazy happened that I have to see. But that's even then it's I'll watch the clip. I'm not going to watch the whole game. And so having those live sports rights, it's huge. But then now it's the way it's divided up. And I'm working on trying to get somebody in here that can talk to this and on a deeper level because I am fascinated by it. And I mean, this is going to be really interesting to see what happens with the Celtics. And it's really cool that this ownership group right now, while they still have control, is saying we're getting everybody locked up, we're bringing everybody back, but we're going to pass this tax bill to whoever comes in and buys this. No, you got a tax bill and some difficult decisions to make. So that's coming with the glow up of owning the Boston Celtics, is that you're going to have a hefty tax bill along with whatever you pay for this team to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, 2028 Khari is probably not happy, but 2024 Khari is like, I love the fact that the owners are like, we got it now. Let's win now. Let's do what it takes, because like that's how you lock it up. You don't know how these things are going to shake out. Like we're 100%. One knee injury away from things changing dramatically. Like, you got to go for it now in the moment while you have the championship core and you've got all the pieces.
And you mentioned this earlier, right? This current ownership group bought the team for like 300, I think it was 360 million in like 2002. The return investment of that is going to be insane. And so that's why over the last couple of years, I haven't been critical of them, but I have said like they shouldn't worry about paying Tatum and Brown. That shouldn't be an issue. Like you got like I've always said like, I don't give a shit about billionaires and their taxes. I just don't. Like, I'm sorry. Like you guys are going to make so much money on this. If you guys have a championship team, and the Celtics have not really paid the tax until the last couple of years, and now they're deep, deep, deep in the tax. And they have said for a couple of years now, if we have the right team, that we would go all in. And they've put their money where their mouth is. So I've got to give them respect on that, because that was always an angle for me where when I was trying to think of how could this team improve, that the taxes shouldn't be an issue because you have these two guys in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown that you should be going for it, right? Like you don't get these windows very often. And they've always said if they have the opportunity, they'll do it. And they've done that. And part of that has been the genius of Brad Stevens in the moves that he's made and the freedom that he's been given to go ahead and make these moves so that now you can have this insane talented roster that is now building depth that is, and even on the smaller contracts, still finding a way to provide value and build you what could be long-term sustainability as a contender. No one can guarantee a championship, but long-term stability as a top-tier contender, which they've already had for the last 3-4 years, And now it looks like they're going to be set up for that going into the future. But something I want to get your thoughts on here, Khari, is just kind of looking around the league. What moves, and we can obviously let's look outside the Celtics here. What moves have impressed you or have caught your eye that you think have been the most interesting, or could have impacts to the Celtics throughout next year and years going forward?
I really like the Knicks going to get Mikal Bridges. Like,
what do you think of the price?
I mean, obviously 5 first-round picks, wild. Like a crazy asking price. That's a superstar asking price. That's like, if we're being frank about it, probably not worth it. But the Knicks have been bad for so long. You finally got hope in the basketball mecca. And it's almost like he's the missing piece. Like, you've got 3 dudes who played in the national championship, won a national championship at Villanova. Go get the 4th. Lean into the identity. And not just that, a really good fit for your team, like another two-way wing that is very good defensively, that can knock down threes. And he's someone you're going to need when you go against the Jays. Like, I think that to me was the most interesting / fun move of the offseason. And not just because I did a year of school at Villanova.
I actually didn't know you did that, man. I've been to Villanova's campus. Villanova's a cool campus, man. I like that area. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Listen, it's a massive pricing. And I think Greg put this well in our last podcast. The Knicks are going all in on a vibe, right? Mm-hmm. They're going all in on the vibes of the Villanova Wildcats.
Sure are. Yeah.
But I think it's one of those overpays that I think makes sense. Now, I think especially, and this is very pertinent for this offseason, we've seen overpays that have come back to bite you in the ass, a la the Los Angeles Clippers, right? I think that's probably, now they didn't give up a young player in this trade, so there's no Shea that's going to come back, and no one thought Shea was going to become Shea that he is now, right? Like people thought he had a potential to be good, but to be a top 5 guy in the league, 2-time first team All NBA, like I would be hard pressed to find someone that thought that was going to be what they were giving up to get Kawhi and Paul George. And listen, I think anyone would have made that trade, even though it was an overpay. If you knew trading for Paul George with that load of picks and young players was going to get you Kawhi, you would do it. They were basically I forget how old they were when that trade was made, but they were closer to the current ages of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown right now. So if any team could load up 6-7 picks in a young guy and just take Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the team, they're doing that ASAP. Not thinking about it. No problem. So it makes sense in the moment, but it is definitely a move that has a lot of potential to come back and bite you in the ass. But to your point, and I'm curious to know what you think about this, I think, at least in the East, they're the team that is closest to the Celtics as far as teams that can threaten the Celtics in going back to back. And I would say specifically, this is where, looking at next season, the Kristaps Porzingis question comes in. Because I think with Kristaps, they're closer, but there's still a healthy gap. If you take out Kristaps and now you're looking at that Knicks versus Celtics roster, that gets really interesting. And, Al's a year older. I think Kata and, Tillman's going to have another year to adjust. We saw with Derrick White that his first year here, it was a little bit of a mixed bag on that run to the 2022 finals, came back in these last 2 seasons. He's been a world of difference now that he's had time to establish. And Tillman's younger than people realize. Tillman's like 24, 25 years old, right? Like,
I know. He's so mature.
He feels like such a grizzly veteran that's been hopping around the league. It's like his 5th year in the league. Like, he's still a relatively young guy. Just played a full career at Michigan State. And so it feels a little bit different. So I think there's still room for him because his fit wasn't as seamless as I thought it was going to be when we traded for him from the Grizzlies. So I'm actually really excited to see what that Tillman fit looks like in year 2 with an offseason and knowing like, hey, I'm here for the next couple years. But looking at the Celtics and Knicks, when you take out Porzingis, that's a pretty even. I'm still obviously, I think talent-wise, leaning Celtics, but it's a whole hell of a lot closer. And I think right now, and let me know if you agree or disagree, I think they're the closest team to the Celtics in the East.
We got to see what the Knicks do with their front court because they just lost Hartenstein.
That was a big one. If they brought him back, I'm actually, regardless of Porzingis' health or not, that if they had brought Hartenstein back, I would be scared of the Knicks.
So you're counting on a healthy Julius Randle, and you got Mitchell Robinson. So I mean, yeah, I think the Knicks, they were already the 2 seed. They got a lot better. I think they're really interesting. But that lack of size, man. Granted, injuries had a lot to do with it, but they ran out of both gas and size at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the playoffs. So I need to see them bring in a big. As far as them being the closest, I would say I would give it to them. I would I would throw Indiana in the mix just purely off of the fact that, to me, they played the Celtics tougher than anyone in this playoffs, including Dallas.
Yeah.
Like those
I think they
games,
would say that too. Yeah.
yeah, those games easily could have gone either way. Celtics easily, I could have seen them going down 2-2 to that series, like,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up being a sweep because we got fortunate bounces and big time shots and steals. But
Yeah.
like, Indy has to be in the mix just off of that alone, and potentially with a healthy Halliburton coming back. And then Philly on paper, but I don't really trust it. Will, I don't really trust it. I mean,
Tell me
but
why. Why don't you trust it?
can we talk about the load management hospital Sixers? Like, I mean, so you're pairing Embiid with Paul George. It all sounds good in theory. You got an elite
Mm-hmm.
offensive big, you got a very good offensive wing. When are these dudes going to stay healthy? Two, do we really trust them as winners yet? You know what I mean? Like, what if either one of those dudes proven? You know what I mean? Like, of course, there's the numbers for the MVP, but like when it comes playoff time, are Celtics fans really scared of Joel Embiid like that? Like, I don't know,
Right.
man. I'm not a
It,
believer. Tell me why I
it,
should
it
be a believer.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you that, but I mean, it feels like Paul George is the eternal hope of like free agency, right? Like when free agency
Yeah,
happens, you get really excited when you get this new piece. Paul George has now been that shiny new piece to Oklahoma City. He's been that new shiny piece of hope, as we just talked about a little bit earlier, to the Clippers.
Clippers. Yeah,
Now he's that to Philadelphia. You know what all those teams have in common? They haven't won shit.
yeah,
That's the
exactly.
thing that they all have in
Yep.
common is
Mm-hmm.
that they haven't. And listen, I like Paul George, but you look at his track record, like you said, it's the hospital Sixers to a degree, right? Because Paul George has played over, I think it's over 55 games once in the last 4 years or 5 years, and that was his past season, right? And so credit to him, when he's healthy, and like the crazy part is he was the healthier of the two between him and Kawhi got paid, not Paul George. So, that tells you a little bit about how the Clippers thought about Paul George. And you're right, like it all fits together when you think about, and I think we're kind of past the time in the NBA where now it's like the big three era. Like you can still have a big three, but I don't think that's necessarily the model. I think it's honestly like almost like a big two, and then you got to get like 3 to 4 of those, what used to be $20 million players that are now probably like 25, $30 million players that are really high end role players, borderline all stars. Like that level is actually the better way to go than just having $350 million guys, which is what the Sixers have, and they all fit together really nicely, like on paper, like you said. Maxey, Paul George, Embiid, like they all kind of make up for different parts that they lack. Maxey and Embiid have always been that, fastball changeup combo. Embiid's protecting the rim. Maxey's not going to be great in the perimeter defense, but now you got Paul George on the wing who can kind of help get you a little bit longer. Paul George can handle the ball. Paul George can shoot. So it all looks good on paper. I like they brought Kelly Oubre back. They brought him back on
Yep.
a steal. That was a great deal. They just signed Caleb Martin today on a cheap
Yep.
deal. But man, talk
Celtic
about
killer
fumbling a
Caleb
bag.
Martin. Oh
Caleb
snap!
Martin,
Oh snap!
Mark Sanchez butt fumble style, passed up. I think it was 5 years and 60 something million from the Heat. Now got 4 years, 32 million. Ugh. That's not great, but for the Sixers, it's a good pickup to round out their depth. But I'm with you, like I can't be scared of the Sixers because number one, we beat them every time. Number two, Embiid's never healthy, and they just added a guy who's also rarely healthy. And Greg brought this up on our last podcast. Neither Paul George or Embiid are the type of guys that at the end of games look particularly comfortable with the basketball. We saw Embiid, he was hurt in the Knicks series. Well, tell me a time he wasn't hurt in the playoffs, and I'll compare it to that, but that doesn't
Sure.
exist. So he did not look comfortable at the end of games. And so, I think Maxey's the dog on that team. I really do. Maxey,
Yeah.
I love Tyrese Maxey. I think Tyrese Maxey is the guy late in the game that on that team scares me the most. Now, the question is, are Paul George and Embiid gonna be okay saying, "Hey, Maxey, take us home"? And we'll have to see how that plays out. But they're gonna be on the court too, and so, the Sixers, talent-wise, I would put them right behind the Knicks in the East. I think, like you said, the Pacers, for the way they play the Celtics, have to be up there. I think the Bucks, out of respect to Giannis, and that's literally the only reason that I'm putting the Bucks in this conversation, are right there. Cleveland, they can kind of miss me. I don't really. They're just running it back. I don't really.
And a
What do you think
bad
about Cleveland
move
just running it
firing
back?
JB Bickerstaff too. I thought he actually did a really nice job there. Like,
I mean, I think that sounds like that was like a Donovan Mitchell kind of. I'm not demanding this, but like, if you want me to sign that extension, like, he's got to go. That's what it felt like. I have no idea if that's the truth, but that's what it kind of felt like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just respect the job that they did and actually how they played the Celtics because like massive talent gap, but they stole the game.
I mean, they have talent. Cleveland has talent. I'm
They
not
do.
convinced it fits together. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And it's just weird to me that they seem content to go, let's try this a third time, when it's like, you guys have had some runs. They've had some moments where they go 18-1 for a stretch last year, but a lot of that was when at least one, if not two of their guys were out and they could make their lineups make more sense. So, I'm really surprised that they're not moving Darius Garland or Jared Allen, trying to get more pieces that make sense. So without that, I just feel like we've seen that before. And so I don't know. I don't think Cleveland really scares me with much. And then you have Orlando's kind of in that. I love what they did with the KCP edition. I think they're kind of in that Indiana spot for me a little bit. I think the Pacers are probably slightly ahead of the Magic, but I think the Magic just have that upside of, we still don't know what Franz and Paolo are going to be. And
Right.
so the jumps that they take are going to be what puts them from, they're in that 5 to 7 range to, oh shit, all of a sudden it's Celtics, Knicks, Magic. Maybe they're like in that Sixers Bucks range. But it's so dependent on that development. But is there any other moves that stood out to you? And you can go Western Conference with this as well too.
I'm trying to think about what actually went on in this league.
It happens so quickly in free
I
agency that
know
it's
there's
like
so many
bing, bang,
transactions.
boom, and then it just dies. Like, we're in that period now where there's so much that it's like we've probably, whether it's the last episode we did or between you and I, we've missed some. But now we're in that like dead period, and you're trying to like go through, because there's still like DeMar DeRozan still out there. There's still some guys that haven't signed. Buddy Hield just ended up going to the Warriors the other day. I actually think, let me ask you this. This is a Western Conference take, but obviously Klay Thompson goes to the Mavericks. The Warriors.
Oh yeah, Klay to the Mavericks. I forgot about that one.
And then the Warriors bring in Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton. I love Klay. Klay's awesome. Klay's been one of my favorite players over the last decade or so. I think the Warriors are better. Like, when you take out Klay and you add in, this is kind of what I was saying before, rather than having 3 max guys, and now you kind of have, you have Draymond, you have Steph, you'll see what Kuminga brings, and they got a couple young guys that could continue to grow and pop. And then you add in Melton, who I really like. I think that's a significant loss for the Sixers for his defense. Now, he's got to be healthy and on the court as well, too. So, got to keep that in mind. Kyle Anderson, I love him as just a slow-mo's one of those guys that he's not going to be able to play regular season-wise. He's phenomenal. Playoff wise, he's gonna have to kind of pick his spots as to when he can play, but he's long. His IQ is very, very high. He's gonna be able to surprise you in different ways and give you a curveball that some teams won't be able to handle. And then you add in Buddy Hield, where if anyone's gonna replace Klay's shooting, and especially if Klay's not the defender that he was, Buddy Hield's pretty damn good replica, if not maybe even a better replica at this point of Klay's career. So I think the Warriors are actually a better team sans Klay. And I don't think it's significant enough, but I do think they're better.
Yeah, I think hopefully that'll put them more squarely into the playoff position,
right,
instead of missing it outright. But I kind of like that move for Dallas too. I mean, him and
Klay,
Kyrie with Luka will be interesting, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So do you think so? Now that basically for the Mavericks, it's Klay's in, Najee Marshall's in, Quentin Grimes is in, Derrick Jones out, Tim Hardaway Jr. out, and Josh Green out. If that were the Dallas team that was playing the Celtics in the finals, how much of a difference? Now, we haven't seen anything on the court yet, but just on paper, theoretically, how much do you think they've improved enough to have closed the gap versus the Celtics, or to even make it, or at least to make it a closer series? I'll say that.
Well, it doesn't address what they really need to take care of. And what they really need to take care of is, how on earth are you going to have Luca get abused like that
Yeah.
on defense and consider him to be your best player and your best option? And just like the Celtics, like Jason Kidd literally said during the series, they put a bullseye on his chest, putting him in every action, right? If this is your guy, right? If this is your star, you cannot have him be that bad defensively. Like, that dude needs to find a way to get in the lab and get a whole heck of a lot better, because star players set the tone. And this is what I like about what Tatum did this year. Okay, Tatum did not have a great shooting playoffs. You know what Tatum did? Tatum's like, all right, I'm going to lead you in every category. I'm going to be your best rebounder. I'm going to be your best assist guy. I'm going to play good defense. And that will overtake some of the scoring lack. So I need them to get Luka right, man. I need to say, don't necessarily snatch the beer from him like they were trying to do in those clips, but get him right, man. He sets the tone.
So let me ask you this, and then we can kind of wrap up after this here. But if you're looking at the West right now, who do you stack up as the top tier of the West? I'll leave it open to who you would include as the top tier of the West.
Even though they lost, I'll put OKC up there just based on what they did.
I think they're number one.
Regular season, they got a real balanced team. They got star power. They're just young, man. I think
I think they might have won the offseason. Like, as far as just like the moves that they've made. I mean, basically
bringing in Caruso, team, right?
Yeah, Caruso, Hartenstein. You basically bringing back the 1 seed, and you upgraded your biggest weakness. And then you took a guy that was basically, I mean, Giddey was floundering all year just as a bad fit. I think Giddey can play, and I actually like that move for the Bulls. I just think there's better for where they're at. There's a better potential with Giddey, but he didn't make sense. Didn't make sense for what the Thunder were doing. And now you add Caruso, who's a champion and a guy that defensively you think about, him and Dort, just all game. And they got other guys that can defend on that team too. But Caruso and Dort are top 5, 10 perimeter defenders in this league. And you got those guys in a 7-game series. Like, that's trouble, especially if Caruso's shooting holds up.
Sure. And then, of course, you got Denver right there. Still got to worry about the Joker, Jamal Murray. I'd say probably rounding out the top 3. I don't know if I go Dallas or if I go Minnesota, but it's between those two.
Yeah,
I think like Dallas just kind of caught Minnesota. Like, it was just.
I mean, it's we talked about this in the playoffs. Styles make fights, right? Like, I think if I'm looking at every other team and looking at where they stack, like head to head, I think Dallas is just a bad matchup for Minnesota, but Minnesota is a better matchup against almost everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Like, whereas Dallas, like I think a year now that Oklahoma City's made the adjustments they have with bringing in Caruso and bringing in Hartenstein, like, if you go back and redo Dallas OKC with the moves they've made this offseason, it was already a super close 6-game series. If I remember correctly, I think the point totals in those 6 games, it was, the exact same. So whether it was, I forget what the exact numbers was, like 678 to 678 or whatever it was. So it was a really, really close 6-game series. Now you add in what OKC did. I'm absolutely picking OKC over Dallas in a series today as we're recording. And so, I'm with you. I think Minnesota would be my number 3 team out west, and then it'd be Dallas. And then there's a whole bunch of teams that are, in that 5 to like 10, 11 range where, I mean, the West is deep, man. There's not a lot of easy games out west. And we know Wemby's coming. They signed CP3. Well, there's a few other, dominoes out there that might fall. Lowry Markkanen. We'll see what happens with DeRozan. So we got a few more things that we'll make some news here over the next couple of weeks that we'll be able to get into. But before I let you go here, Khari, what's I know right now you're in the middle of a staycation, just enjoying the vibes, enjoying life right now. But from a coverage standpoint, what's coming up for you? Is it transitioning to football season, or are you still going to be doing a little mix of both right now?
I'll still be doing both. I'm general assignment, so I technically do everything, mostly Patriots and Celtics. So do have training camp coming up in a couple of weeks, but I'll keep my eyes on the Celtics and what they do this offseason. The limited moves they're going to have.
Limited moves. I mean, honestly, we were talking about this, me and Greg off air, but thank God we have the Olympics because, like you said, there's very limited moves the Celtics can do. Like, the sale is now something we can monitor that gives us some more content here. But, like Pusha T says, it's dry season. It's dry season right now. And so there's not a lot going on. And so I think the Olympics, which, by the way, we were just talking about Luka. Slovenia just got eliminated just before we hopped on here to record. So the final Olympic spots are all getting sorted out here over the next couple of weeks. I'm pretty excited for Olympic basketball. And then luckily, Jason Tatum and Jrue Holiday are a part of that. So we'll definitely be pretty locked in to a lot of the Olympics going on here. And then, of course, we'll check in with Summer Lee. Celtics got some interesting guys. Baylor Shireman, we're going to learn more about him, learn more about Anton Watson. We'll see. I haven't looked at the full roster of who's there for the Celtics, but I'm sure we'll get some more looks at Jordan Walsh and a few others. So we'll at least have a little bit to talk about, but we're gonna have to make it stretch out here. So Khari, I'm sure we'll be calling on you to come back in, share with us what you can, and maybe even get some insights into Patriots training camp when that all gets going. But appreciate you joining me today, man. It was as fun as always catching up with you here.
Let's go. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of Green with Envy. Again, a massive shout out to the new father of the podcast. Shout out to Greg and his beautiful fiance, Danielle, and their baby boy, James Moy Manakis. With that, we're going to play you out here with a little Black Sheep Optimist. Enjoy your day, and we will catch you guys later in the week. Peace. It feels like summer, baby. Oh, mama, feel like summer. New season got me seeing new colors. So fly, the sky will kiss you. Lips so smooth, I miss your issues. Oh, mama, feel like summer. New season got me seeing new colors. Oh, my, I'm slipping into white lies and time to miss you. Now you're 3 shots deep that you chase with the Croy. You're looking at me while you're making that noise.